January 26, 2026, Windsor Confidential, royal exclusive. This is no longer being framed as a private family issue. It's now being discussed by commentators as a serious institutional crossroads for the monarchy. Observers say the crown appears to be drawing a hard boundary, and Prince Harry is reportedly facing a narrow window to decide where he stands. According to multiple royal commentators, an unprecedented message, described as both personal and formally authorized, was delivered to Prince Harry on behalf of King Charles III. The communication, reportedly routed through confidential diplomatic channels and escorted by the King's private secretary, Lord Alderton, allegedly arrived at the Sussex residence in Montecito, California, on January 9, 2026. Sources familiar with palace procedures claim the document outlined a stark choice. Harry is said to have been presented with conditions tied to any future relationship with the royal institution, including a requirement to legally separate from Meghan Markle within a 30-day period, or face what insiders describe as permanent institutional separation from the monarchy. Palace-adjacent sources allege Lord Alderton remained on site for nearly an hour, while Harry reviewed the lengthy document alone. One unnamed staffer later described the atmosphere as heavy and emotionally charged, comparing it to watching the closing chapter of an era, though these descriptions remain unverified. Commentators say the terms, as described by insiders, were framed as non-negotiable. Harry would reportedly need to initiate formal divorce proceedings recognized in both US and UK jurisdictions and agree to a structured reintegration process under strict royal oversight, should he choose that path. Under this reported framework, Harry could return to the UK with his children, Archie and Lilibet, but only as a non-working royal. Analysts stress that this would mean retaining the title of prince in name only, without public duties, privileges, or symbolic authority. Restoration of any additional titles or honors would allegedly depend on an open-ended review process with no guaranteed conclusion. This monitoring phase, according to royal analysts, would be overseen by a senior oversight panel. The group is said to include Princess Anne, often described as the monarchy's internal enforcer, alongside constitutional advisors and ethics officials tasked with reviewing conduct, media engagement, and long-term stability, especially where family life and public exposure are concerned. Experts emphasize that no fixed timeline has been mentioned. The process could last months, years, or potentially never reach a formal resolution. And if Harry were to decline or ignore the reported conditions, commentators warn the institutional consequences could be sweeping and final. These potential outcomes, as discussed by royal watchers, may include removal from the line of succession, loss of remaining titles, termination of royal funding streams, and permanent exclusion from ceremonial events. Analysts also note ongoing public discussion about how royal status rules affecting descendants have evolved in recent years, particularly following high-profile commercial ventures. Perhaps most striking is the reported tone of the document itself. A source claiming familiarity with its contents says the language reflected not just institutional authority, but deep personal disappointment. One passage attributed to the letter reads, "You chose her once and I respected it. But the choice to continually dishonor your heritage, to reduce the institution to a currency of spectacle, is something I cannot condone." Diana would have wanted peace, not permanent rebellion. That line, according to sources familiar with the correspondence, sits near the emotional core of the letter. Commentators say the message frames legacy not as defiance, but as responsibility, especially where children are concerned, emphasizing protection over positioning. King Charles is said to directly address long-standing claims made by Prince Harry, including the widely repeated accusation that Charles was emotionally distant following Princess Diana's death. One passage reportedly acknowledges Harry's pain, paraphrased by sources as, "You say I did not hold you enough when you cried." That reflection, observers note, sets the stage for what follows. Charles's response, according to those familiar with the document, is stark but restrained. "Perhaps that is true," the letter allegedly continues, "but I am holding you now, not in arms, but in consequence." Analysts stress this language isn't vindictive, it's deliberate, heavy, and unmistakably final. Palace sources trace the origin of this ultimatum back to a private, reportedly tense 50-minute meeting between father and son. The meeting allegedly took place on September 18, 2025, at Clarence House. Multiple aides claimed Charles offered a reconciliation pathway, but with a single, immovable condition. That condition, sources say, was that Meghan Markle would not be included in any future institutional royal role. Harry is said to have rejected the proposal immediately, responding with the now widely quoted line, "I am a husband first, not a prince." Insiders describe that moment as the breaking point. The instant years of stalled compromise finally collapsed. According to palace-adjacent sources, what followed was not an emotional outburst, but a calculated pivot. After consultations with senior royals and constitutional advisors, Charles reportedly authorized the drafting of the letter weeks later. One official familiar with the process stated this was not reactive, it was preventative, framing it as institutional risk control. As one unnamed official put it bluntly, "You are either in or out. You cannot monetize the gray zone." Analysts argue that by issuing the ultimatum amid renewed media speculation, weakening Sussex brand partnerships, and growing public criticism, Charles sent a message far beyond Harry himself. The message, royal watchers say, was clear. The crown will not be weakened from within. Titles cannot exist without accountability. And a family name, according to palace logic, cannot be leveraged in ways that undermine the institution that gave it meaning. At this point in the now infamous 11-page document, attention reportedly shifts. The tone moves from a father's sorrow to a monarch's scrutiny. Observers describe the transition as subtle but unmistakable, emotion giving way to structure, sentiment replaced by standards. Sources claim Charles outlines, point by point, how Prince Harry allegedly violated the royal code of conduct. The document reportedly explains why these actions, as interpreted by palace authorities, disqualify him from retaining any remaining privileges unless he formally recommits to royal obligations. This section, insiders emphasize, is not framed as personal retaliation. It is described as codified accountability. The Royal Code of Conduct, first compiled under King George V in 1923 and updated in 2014 during Queen Elizabeth II's reign, governs both public behavior and internal ethical obligations within the monarchy. The code, often referred to inside palace circles as a living charter, is reportedly enforced quietly through established channels. Breaches are logged, reviewed, and addressed behind closed doors by oversight bodies, not through press statements or public drama. According to the letter, Prince Harry is said to have triggered multiple major breaches over the past 6 years. Sources stress the list is detailed, chronological, and deliberately structured to prevent reinterpretation or deflection. One cited example reportedly includes the January 8, 2020 announcement made via Instagram regarding Sussex royal plans. The letter allegedly states this move occurred without advance notice, approval, or coordination, violating established protocol. As the document reportedly notes, no royal may unilaterally alter or announce changes to official status without sovereign coordination. According to sources familiar with the document, King Charles also invokes succession and national security protocols to explain why the January 2020 announcement caused far-reaching disruption. Analysts say the sudden move reportedly blindsided government offices and created confusion across Commonwealth partners, forcing institutions to react without preparation. The letter allegedly points to Harry and Meghan's commercial deals with Netflix and Spotify as a critical escalation. Palace-adjacent commentators describe these agreements as examples of monetizing royal identity, something the Crown has historically barred. One cited rule reportedly states that royal titles, ranks, or historical associations may not be used, directly or indirectly, to secure paid partnerships or intellectual property deals. According to the letter, these projects were said to rely on proximity to royal life, including personal memories, behind-the-scenes access, and associations with official events. Critics argue that this occurred even as Harry publicly maintained he had stepped away from royal duties, a contradiction the document allegedly treats as a serious breach. Another section reportedly addresses what palace officials classify as repeated violations involving public criticism of immediate family members between 2021 and 2023. Analysts say interviews and published works are cited, including high-profile media appearances and memoir material that portrayed internal family conflicts on a global stage. The letter is said to emphasize that while private disagreements are inevitable in any family, broadcasting them internationally crosses an institutional red line. One source paraphrases the king's position bluntly: "What is whispered inside the family must not become commercial content abroad." Observers note the emphasis on unity as essential to the monarchy's survival. The document reportedly also revisits events surrounding Queen Elizabeth II's funeral in September 2022. According to palace commentators, Harry's reported request to wear a military uniform, despite not holding active service status, is described as a symbolic breach during a moment of national mourning. The issue, sources say, wasn't clothing. It was protocol. Analysts claim the letter frames this as an attempt to assert relevance during a solemn national event. Cited guidelines reportedly state that military insignia must align with current or formally approved honorary standing and require authorization through official channels. Another contested point, according to commentators, involves how Harry and Meghan have referenced their children's royal lineage in interviews and charitable contexts. The letter allegedly describes this as contradictory, especially while simultaneously distancing the children from royal customs and institutional traditions. Sources stress the language used avoids attacking the children themselves. Instead, the concern raised is about consistency and identity management. As one passage is paraphrased, titles are not shields, they are responsibilities. Royal observers say this framing places accountability squarely on the adults. The final major issue raised in the letter reportedly centers on private financial correspondence sent in late 2024. According to sources, Harry requested financial support from royal funding offices just weeks before a streaming episode aired, in which he criticized royal life as restrictive and elitist. The king reportedly addresses this contrast directly. One paraphrased line reads, "The contradiction is not lost on the public, nor is it lost on me." Analysts describe this as one of the sharpest moments in the document. The letter also allegedly references a September 2025 interview in which Harry stated that his father never reached out during critical moments. In response, Charles is said to include documentation showing a video call invitation sent in May 2023 through official channels. According to the document, that invitation was reportedly declined due to media filming commitments. Observers say this moment is framed as the clearest example of the gap between perception and effort, a tragedy of missed connections rather than a single act of neglect. Sources say this tension directly shaped the proposal raised during the private 50-minute Clarence House meeting later that year. According to palace-adjacent briefings, King Charles made it clear that any reconciliation pathway would require Meghan Markle to be excluded from future institutional involvement. Charles reportedly closes this section of the letter by outlining conditional terms for Harry's return should he agree to a divorce. Under this framework, Harry would be allowed back into the UK under a supervised re-entry process, with residence restricted to a secured royal estate, potentially an annex at Sandringham or an auxiliary property within Windsor Great Park. The document allegedly specifies detailed arrangements for the children. Sources emphasize that the focus is on stability, not exposure, including full UK residency rights, protected travel status, access to education comparable to other royal grandchildren, and strict limits on public appearances. Analysts stress that Harry would not represent the monarchy in any capacity. According to the letter, symbolic status would remain, but without HRH styling, without public duties, and without operational authority. The evaluation period is reportedly indefinite, subject to recurring review by the Royal Standards and Conduct Council. One line is paraphrased by sources as offering a bridge, not a throne, a return to family, not to function. Royal commentators note that this moment reframes the entire crisis. It is no longer presented as a choice between love and crown, but as a man caught between two collapsing worlds, one rooted in duty, the other built on image and independence. In an off-record briefing dated January 24, 2026, Lady Eleanor Habersham, chair of the RSCC, reportedly described the situation as unsustainable in its current form. Analysts say her remarks emphasized containment over punishment, signaling that the institution's priority is long-term stability. As the deadline reportedly tightens, with less than 2 weeks remaining, attention has shifted behind the hedged walls of the Montecito estate. Sources claiming direct knowledge of the household describe what they call a total lockdown, both physical and emotional. According to multiple insiders, Harry and Meghan are no longer aligned in tone or strategy. What began as unified defiance is now described as a quiet unraveling, marked by diverging fears and incompatible endgames. Those close to Harry portray him as withdrawn and deeply unsettled by the ultimatum. One anonymous associate claims he has become isolated, restless, and emotionally shaken. The letter, they say, cut deeper than expected, not for its political weight, but for its emotional finality. As one source put it bluntly, it didn't read like a command, it read like a goodbye written in advance. Observers say that perception has left Harry paralyzed rather than defiant. In contrast, Meghan is described by sources as furious, calculating, and afraid all at once. From her perspective, insiders claim the monarchy's move feels less like reconciliation and more like a strategic ambush designed to cast her as the dividing line between father and son. One former associate alleges Meghan privately expressed fears of being erased and financially sidelined. The framing, according to those familiar with her thinking, is stark. If Harry yields, she loses everything. If he doesn't, she risks losing him anyway. While public narratives center on love and loyalty, analysts argue that financial pressure remains the silent force shaping every move. Following the end of a major audio partnership in late 2024 and delays surrounding future streaming releases, sources suggest the household has faced increasing strain. Publicly filed records in California have fueled speculation among commentators, with reports of payment negotiations, delayed settlements, and stalled refinancing discussions circulating widely. None of these claims confirm insolvency, but analysts say the pattern points to mounting pressure. The royal letter reportedly acknowledges this reality by offering limited transitional support if Harry returns under the outlined conditions. But the alternative path, sources warn, carries lasting consequences. These reportedly include the loss of formal title usage, diminished influence in public speaking markets, removal from heritage-linked charitable boards, and a sharp decline in perceived prestige within entertainment circles. As one royal economist summarized off-record, without institutional backing, the brand loses momentum. Observers say Meghan understands this reality, while Harry, according to insiders, struggles to confront it. What makes this moment so volatile, analysts conclude, is that Harry is being forced to decide alone, yet every possible outcome carries irreversible damage. One path costs him his marriage, the other costs him his lineage, and neither offers a clean escape. If Harry chooses divorce, commentators say he would have to live with the weight of walking away from Meghan and the life they built together, not just emotionally, but socially and symbolically. Knowing that choice reshapes his children's daily reality as well. If he chooses Meghan instead, analysts argue the cost is just as severe. That decision would effectively end his remaining role in royal history and likely sever what little connection remains with King Charles, Prince William, and the monarchy's legacy permanently. Observers frequently revisit Harry's own words from a 2021 podcast appearance. "I didn't walk away from the family. I walked away from the pain. I just wish they'd asked why." But insiders now say the institution is no longer asking. It is setting conditions. For Meghan Markle, this moment is described by commentators as existential. Her public image is already fragile following a series of widely discussed setbacks, including gifting controversies abroad, ongoing family-related legal disputes, and the stalled rollout of a lifestyle brand in 2025. Analysts warn that if Harry leaves, Meghan would be left without active titles, without income streams tied to royal proximity, and without access to the monarchy itself. Even more damaging, critics say, is the narrative risk, being framed as the central rupture rather than a misunderstood outsider. Industry insiders are blunt about the media landscape. No publisher is eager to back a memoir framed around loss without access. No studio rushes to fund a docuseries where the core tension, proximity to power, has already collapsed. That reality, sources claim, is why Meghan's remaining strategy appears focused on persuading Harry that his father is bluffing. Insiders suggest she views the ultimatum as a pressure tactic rather than an irreversible institutional move. The problem, according to Palace Watchers, is that King Charles is not bluffing. And that leaves Meghan trapped in a contradiction she cannot resolve. She can't afford to lose Harry, but she also can't afford for him to return alone. As one former associate reportedly summarized off-record on January 24, 2026, she's running out of time, and there's no clean move left. With the 30-day deadline closing in, the stakes are escalating by the hour. The question now dominating royal commentary is unavoidable. What happens to Meghan Markle if Prince Harry chooses to walk away? And just as critically, what options remain if he doesn't? Behind the guarded gates of the Montecito estate, analysts say a second chessboard is now in play. One driven not by emotion or legacy, but by legal positioning, brand survival, and reputational damage control. In just the past 72 hours, sources claim Meghan has held multiple confidential meetings. These reportedly include consultations with legal advisors, a crisis public relations strategist based in Beverly Hills, and a financial auditor with experience handling high-profile nonprofit structures. Insiders stress the issue isn't simply Harry's decision, it's the story that follows. From Meghan's perspective, sources say there is no winning narrative regardless of the outcome. If Harry leaves, observers predict the public framing will be harsh and unforgiving. The storyline, critics argue, would shift quickly toward ambition ending in isolation, a narrative even sympathetic outlets may struggle to soften. As one former entertainment executive reportedly put it, "This isn't scandal, it's a Shakespearean ending, and she's being written out of the final act." The drama, they say, has moved beyond redemption arcs. But if Harry stays, analysts warn the fallout is equally brutal. The monarchy would reportedly withdraw all remaining recognition, erasing Sussex branding, cutting off royal-adjacent credibility, and closing access to centuries of institutional mythology. From a financial standpoint, commentators say the numbers only intensify the pressure. The termination of a major audio partnership in mid-2024 reportedly resulted in multi-million-dollar losses, while streaming agreements were quietly renegotiated to reduce guaranteed payouts. Sources also point to non-profit scrutiny and rising operational costs at the Montecito property. None of this confirms collapse, but analysts agree it signals shrinking margins and diminishing leverage. At this point, royal watchers conclude Meghan is boxed in from every angle. The clock is ticking, the institution is unmoved, and Harry is being forced to choose alone. And no matter which door he opens, something irreplaceable will close behind him. Royal analysts say the palace is fully aware of the Sussex household's financial pressures, including staffing costs, property taxes, security expenses, and disputed equity issues tied to prior lending arrangements. These realities, observers argue, explain why King Charles reportedly included a final, quieter clause at the end of the ultimatum. According to multiple royal sources, while the public framing of the ultimatum appears rigid and absolute, the actual letter sent to Harry allegedly contained a confidential postscript addressed directly to Meghan Markle. This section, sources claim, was written in the king's own hand and was never intended for public release. That private note reportedly outlines a single pathway for Meghan to exit the situation without lasting reputational collapse. The terms, as described by insiders, focus on separation without litigation, without prolonged public conflict, and without continued institutional damage. According to those familiar with the letter, Meghan would be asked to agree to a non-public, non-adversarial divorce process. She would also formally renounce any future use of royal titles, associations, or personal royal narratives for commercial or political purposes, with one narrowly defined exception. Sources claim the proposal includes a one-time, non-renewable financial settlement intended to assist with relocation and legal transition costs. Commentators stress this figure has never been confirmed publicly and remains the subject of speculation. In exchange, Meghan would reportedly withdraw past public claims related to her royal experience and agree not to publish memoirs, documentaries, or serialized media projects about her time within the monarchy. Analysts emphasize this condition centers on finality, not punishment. Under the reported framework, Meghan would retain primary residence of the children in California, provided shared parental access and joint decision-making rights are respected. The focus, according to observers, is stability rather than control. The letter allegedly further states that the Crown would not initiate immigration challenges or seek custody disputes through UK courts. However, sources stress this offer is conditional. Any attempt to reopen negotiations publicly or pursue adversarial legal strategies would void the agreement entirely. If those terms were breached, commentators say the palace would respond through coordinated legal channels and diplomatic influence rather than public confrontation. Analysts describe this as institutional containment rather than retaliation. What stands out most to royal watchers isn't the legal structure. It's the emotional tone. Sources say the language reflects a balance between authority and restraint, discipline and mercy. According to aides, King Charles views Meghan as destabilizing to the institution, but also acknowledges her role as a mother and a former family member. One passage is paraphrased as offering closure instead of retribution. A line attributed to the final paragraph reads, "I offer not punishment, but closure. Let our children not be taught to fight ghosts for the rest of their lives." Observers describe this as the most personal sentence in the entire document. The message, analysts say, is unmistakable. The monarchy is willing to let Meghan walk away with dignity, but only if the crown is allowed to disengage without further harm. Sources suggest Meghan is deeply conflicted. Some believe she may privately welcome a clean exit if it can be framed as empowerment rather than exclusion. Others argue she may be preparing a counter-strategy involving legal pressure or selective media engagement. What most observers agree on, however, is that leverage has diminished. The era of major streaming deals, global amplification, and guaranteed headlines appears to be fading. leaving reputation management as the final battlefield. As one insider reportedly noted, "What's left isn't expansion, it's damage control." And the clock, they say, is moving fast. Amid all this, royal commentators stress that the most delicate issue is not Harry or Meghan, it is the children. Behind the scenes, analysts say, the letter devotes a separate section entirely to their future. Notably, this portion is framed not as punishment or decree, but as conditional protection. It is described as a firewall designed to shield them from the fallout of adult decisions. While the monarchy appears prepared to sever Harry's royal identity if he remains with Meghan, observers say it has not finalized the long-term status of the children. Their place in royal tradition, analysts argue, was always symbolic, but their future is political, emotional, and profoundly sensitive. As media attention fixates on Harry's looming decision and Meghan's legal calculations, a quieter battle is unfolding beneath the headlines. One centered not on power or prestige, but on ensuring that two young lives are not permanently defined by a conflict they did not create. Royal observers note that Archie and Lilibet are the only grandchildren of a reigning British monarch born outside the United Kingdom. They were not baptized within the Church of England, were not formally presented at Sandringham, and have not participated in traditional royal upbringing customs. By long-standing royal standards, they have not been embedded in court life. They have not followed royal etiquette education, nor appeared regularly at family functions in recent years, aside from Queen Elizabeth II's funeral. Analysts stress these are observations of protocol, not judgments of worth. Despite this, their names currently remain on the official line of succession. Archie is listed 6th, with Lilibet 7th, positioned behind Prince Louis. Royal historians emphasize that inclusion on the list does not automatically equate to active heir status. According to sources familiar with the letter, King Charles addresses this directly in a section reportedly titled "Future of the Windsor Line." This portion is described as measured, cautious, and rooted in institutional continuity rather than punishment. Under the outlined proposal, analysts say the children's future status is linked to integration, not genetics. If Harry were to return and raise the children within the Crown's ethical and cultural framework, they would retain heritage recognition and ceremonial dignity. If Harry declines, sources claim the institution would formally designate Archie and Lilibet as private citizens without royal titles or symbolic affiliation. Palace aides stress this is framed as protocol, not coercion. According to commentators, the letter makes one principle unmistakably clear. The crown does not pass through DNA alone. It passes through participation and integration. Royal analysts outline what reintegration could include if Harry returned. Educational access within established royal school pathways, ceremonial inclusion at future state occasions, and eligibility for courtesy titles, though without HRH styling, are all described as possible outcomes. These courtesy titles, analysts explain, would be symbolic only. They carry no operational authority, no constitutional power, and no public obligations. But they preserve historical continuity within the royal record. Sources also claim the letter references formal documentation within the heraldic system. This includes preservation of lineage records and access to specific family trusts, historically reserved for descendants raised under institutional guardianship models. Observers stress these provisions are not about luxury. They are about protection, identity, and continuity across generations. If Harry refuses the Crown's terms and remains outside institutional life, analysts say the consequences would be formal and procedural. These could include removal from the line of succession through established legal channels and exclusion from royal trust structures. Additional outcomes discussed by royal historians include removal from ceremonial registries, loss of symbolic documentation at the College of Arms, and ineligibility for future elevation even if reconciliation were sought decades later. Commentators note that this would make Archie and Lilibet exceptionally rare cases in modern royal history. descendants of a reigning monarch raised entirely outside institutional affiliation. Beyond legal and procedural matters, analysts emphasize the emotional dimension. These are children born into royal lineage, but growing up apart from it, a quiet displacement shaped by adult decisions. Those close to Princess Catherine are said to find this prospect deeply saddening. Sources describe concern that the children may grow up knowing their cousins, George, Charlotte, and Louis, not through shared experiences, but only through distant public images. Royal watchers conclude this section is not written in anger. It is written in restraint, attempting to resolve an impossible contradiction between heritage and separation. And at the center of it all, analysts agree, are two children whose futures hinge not on choice, but on consequences they never created. Princess Anne, often described by royal watchers as the monarchy's moral compass, reportedly delivered a blunt warning during a recent internal Windsor review. One source paraphrases her words sharply: "Blood without structure becomes mythology." Observers say her point was clear. These are not legends or symbols. They are children, and children require order. Prince William, according to Kensington sources, has privately voiced deep concern about the long-term psychological toll on Archie and Lilibet if they are cut off completely, only to later discover the heritage that once surrounded them. His fear, insiders say, isn't just sadness. It's future resentment, not only toward Harry, but toward the monarchy itself. One of the palace's greatest anxieties, royal analysts claim, is the possibility that if Harry and Meghan remain outside the institution, the children could be positioned as narrative devices in future media projects. Executives have already floated speculative concepts centered on royal children in exile, exploring identity through a commercial lens. According to one courtier, the danger isn't curiosity, it's commodification. The Crown's legacy risks becoming collateral inside someone else's production schedule, shaped by branding needs rather than historical responsibility. That concern reportedly led the Royal Ethics Board to draft a quiet but powerful provision known internally as the Child Image Protection Act, Windsor Edition. The aim, analysts say, is to block the commercial use of former royal descendants in branded content, advertising, or documentary-style programming tied to their lineage. If recognized under broader media responsibility frameworks, violations could reportedly trigger sanctions against platforms distributing such content in the UK and across Commonwealth realms. Observers note this isn't about censorship. It's about child protection. Notably, the King's letter does not end with legal threats or constitutional language. Instead, sources say it closes with a handwritten message focused entirely on the children. "If you cannot return for yourself, then return for them," the note reportedly reads. Let them know where they come from, not through documentaries, but through dinners, not through headlines, but through heritage. Royal insiders say this final passage affected Harry more deeply than any other section of the letter. Whether it will be enough to change his decision remains unknown, but its emotional weight is undeniable. What is clear, analysts agree, is that the future of Archie and Lilibet is no longer being shaped by the past. It is being defined in real time by a father caught in a war with himself. As one royal historian observed during a BBC World appearance on January 25, 2026, the monarchy has survived abdication, assassination, and abolition attempts. What it cannot survive is internal erosion. With the deadline set for February 8, 2026, palace sources say the entire royal household is now operating under high alert and controlled silence. There are no press releases, no walkabouts, no public commentary, only private movements and institutional preparation. According to insiders at Clarence House, a three-phase crisis protocol is already in motion. Phase 1 is silent waiting. No contact with Montecito, no intermediaries, no emotional outreach. King Charles has reportedly instructed the family plainly: let the man choose as a man, not as a son. Phase 2 involves operational realignment. Legal teams are preparing documentation for immediate title removal, asset disentanglement, and narrative management should the terms be declined. Phase 3, sources claim, focuses on succession streamlining. Prince William and the Privy Council are said to be drafting an updated order of succession and a public communication strategy, including a pre-recorded address from King Charles to be released within 48 hours of the deadline if no response is received. While some observers interpret the palace's silence as cold, royal officials insist it is deliberate discipline. Any additional communication, they say, could be leaked, twisted, or weaponized. Charles's approach, analysts note, mirrors his mother's philosophy during moments of crisis. Stand firm, speak once. What makes this moment historic isn't just the decision. It's the delivery. No spectacle, no orchestrated leaks, no media blitz, just one envelope, 11 pages, and a ticking clock. If no response is received by 11:59 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time on February 8, 2026, palace procedures are expected to activate immediately. A formal statement citing non-compliance, an emergency Privy Council meeting, updated archival records striking Sussex titles from ceremonial use. In effect, silence becomes exile. What remains after the dust settles? Analysts suggest a monarchy reinforced by boundaries and clarity. For Harry, a life with his wife, but without his past. For Meghan, survival or solitude, depending on how the story is told. For Archie and Lilibet, a legacy not erased, but permanently altered. And for King Charles, a defining moment of firm grace, a father who drew a line not out of vengeance, but to protect the house that bears his name. As one palace aide reportedly whispered, "This isn't punishment, it's closure." And closure, by all accounts, is coming. If you found this breakdown valuable, like the video. Subscribe for more deep dive royal analysis. Comment below. Where do you think Harry's decision will land? I'll see you in the next one.